Okay, so here were your 4 practice problems. Let's go ahead and do them together. This is 2/3 to the 0 power. Anything to the 0th power is always equal to 1. So 1 is my final answer. Number 2, a negative exponent creates a reciprocal. This negative over here, not impacted at all. This is 1 over -8 squared, which if we were to simplify that further would be 1 over 64. Because -8 times -8 is positive 64. Number 3, the negative exponent creates a reciprocal. So this 2 is in the denominator right now, but I have to flip it because of the negative, which means this is 2 cubed, which when we simplify further becomes 8. Again, a negative exponent creates a reciprocal, so it flips it over, right? This would be, technically we could call this 2/3 over 1, but because it's over 1, I don't really care, and I just don't write it. That's why it's just 2 cubed. Finally, the last one here is -1 to the 0th power. Anything to the 0th power is always equal to 1. All right, and if you've got those done and you're perfect on them, fantastic. If you've got some questions about negative exponents, make sure you ask those out. Negative exponents are one of those things that as I see students advance through mathematics, negative exponents are a sticking point, right? But remember, negative exponents make reciprocals. That's the important thing to remember here. They flip it. Okay, let's do some more complex interactions now. So we're going to use all of the properties of exponents that we have used thus far. Okay, we have talked about how when we multiply variables, we add the exponents, right? So like a to the 5th times a squared makes a to the 7th. We've talked about how a power to a power means we multiply. So this would be like a to the 5th squared is a to the 10th. We have talked about how having multiple things inside of an exponent, or excuse me, inside the parentheses with an exponent on the outside means that we sort of, it's not distributing, but it's kind of like distributing that exponent to everything. So this is a to the 12th, b to the 8th. And we've talked about how division is subtraction. So this is a to the 5th. Finally, when we have a division problem that's in the parentheses with a power on the outside, we make sure to distribute that power to everything. So a cubed to b to the 5th squared is going to make a cubed squared and b to the 5th squared, which makes a to the 6th and b to the 10th. Now what we're going to do in the next examples is we're going to use all of these properties, combinations of them, and decide what do we do with the negative and 0 exponents that show up. The key thing here is do negatives, what happened? Do negatives and zeros at the end. And I'm going to write a little disclaimer on here that that's in general. There are a few specific instances where it is better to do the negative or 0 at the beginning. But in general, do your operations and do that part at the end. So, okay, let's do these examples together. This is 6 to the -4 times 6 to the +4, which means what we're looking at here is 6 to the -4 plus 4. Because I'm multiplying the 6's, I add the exponents, which gives me 6 to the 0 power. But I know that 6 to the 0 power is 1. So my final simplified answer is 1. For b, we have 4 to the -2 squared. My power rule says that this is 4 to the -2 times 2. Multiplying these exponents gives me 4 to the negative 4. And when I go to simplify this, I remember that negative exponents create reciprocals, and so I flip it, and the power becomes positive. So I have 1 over 4 to the 4th. And we can go ahead and solve this last step if we want to. Let's see, that would be 4 times 4 is 16. 16 times 4 is 64. 64 times 4 is 256. So that's 1 over 256. For part C here, we have a negative exponent in the denominator. Again, negative exponents create reciprocals, so it's going to flip out of the denominator and into the numerator. And so I have 3 to the 4th power as my answer here, which I can simplify that further. 3 times 3 is 9. 9 times 3 is 27. 27 times 3 is 81. Finally, we have a division problem. The division problem here, I'm going to subtract. So this is 5 to the negative 1 minus 2. Keep in mind, we're taking this number minus this number. So when I subtract these, this is 5 to the negative 3. And before I call myself finished, I need to take care of this negative exponent. And I remember that negative exponents create reciprocals, so I'm going to flip that to 1 over 5 cubed, which simplifies to 1 over 125. All right, there are some problems for you to practice. Go ahead and do those on your own. This concludes this video. Please check out the next one to see the answers for your practice problems.